If you've always been privileged, equality feels like oppression. So if you never had to compete with women or people of color before, and all of a sudden you do, it's like, it's not fair. They're not giving me a chance. No, now you just have to compete with everybody else.
Hey, everybody, welcome to Still We Heal Conversations the World Needs Now. Today, I'm going to start off. I'll be introducing my guest, Eric Love. We're living in a moment where conversations about race, equity, and truth are not only being challenged, they are being erased. Today, I'm joined by Eric Love, who has spent his life not just in these conversations, but on the front lines of change. So I'm going to read he's done so much. I'm going to read to you just a brief encapsulation of Eric's work. His bio will be on, his photo and bio will be together on the channel. Eric Love is not just a DEI practitioner, he's a truth teller working at the front lines of a national reckoning. At a time when diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts are being challenged, politicized, and rolled back, Eric brings clarity, courage, and lived experience to conversations many are afraid to have. His work does not dilute reality, it confronts it. His work is rooted not just in professional expertise, but in lived experience, holding space for the complexity, pain, and possibility that come with navigating systems that don't always make room for everyone. From becoming the first African American student body president at Boise State University to leading diversity and inclusion efforts at institutions like Indiana University and the University of Notre Dame, Eric has spent decades challenging systems, shaping leaders, and creating spaces where real dialogue can occur. Through his firm, Love Force Consulting, Eric continues to equip organizations with the tools to move beyond performative gestures into meaningful, lasting change. Among his proudest achievements is helping secure recognition of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day in the state of Idaho, a reflection of his lifelong commitment to justice, visibility, and impact. And I've had the great pleasure of hearing Eric give keynotes, which, with his gentle, deeply impactful voice and communication, have profound impact on even resistant people. So, Eric, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I'm familiar with your work. I've been able to learn about all the things that you're doing, and so first, I'm so flattered by the introduction, but also just an honor to be here having this conversation with you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. You ready to dive in?
I'm ready.
Okay, we know this is a really thorny issue right now, so I couldn't have a better person to be able to be brave enough to confront some of these questions along with me. Thank you. Um, so before we talk about policy and systems, I want to start with you. What is this moment right now felt like personally as someone who has dedicated your life to this work?
This is a very tough time. Um, I entered the field working in diversity and inclusion, equity, because I strongly believed in it. I felt that it was necessary. We kind of espouse that we value the diversity we have as a nation and in our country, but we didn't always honor it or practice it, right? So we didn't talk the talk. We talked the talk. We didn't walk the walk. And so I've, for decades, I've done this work because it's important. I've seen people transform. I've seen organizations transform. I've seen people get, organizations, institutions get more and more diverse, become more and more successful. And so I strongly believe in the work that I've been doing and the value of diverse teams, diverse organizations, diverse leadership. And then we're at a time now where it was banned and outlawed and budgets cut because one person or a few people in power decide that it's not what we should be doing, and so to have decades and decades of work and research and valued and change to be halted and start to be wiped out so quickly it's a really tough to deal with.
I I can't even imagine. I mean, I've been involved in the work, so when diversity offices were first put into colleges about 15 years ago, that had never been before, and that was such a beautiful moment, even though it was under-resourced and incredibly tough for the diversity officers and leaders. But they managed and they cared, and they committed so much to that work. And then to have them all disbanded and wiped out, it's and so that there's no place for belonging and a home for minority students and people of color. It's yeah.
Right? The
And your
importance of
whole
it.
life has been dedicated to this work. Yeah.
Yes, and yeah, and I not only entered the field because I thought it was important, but I come from such a diverse background. So I was born and raised in diversity. I'm biracial. My father was African American. My mother was white. I am bicultural. My father was from Osceola, Arkansas. My mother is from Liverpool, England. I grew up in England and the state of Idaho. I have a lot of religious diversity in my family: Catholic, Jewish, Protestant, Baptist, and I've just always had diversity, and so it was instilled in me as a child, and it was something I decided to work on. I have a natural talent for it because of my upbringing, but it's something I really wanted to work on, and I know how valuable it is and how impactful it is, and if we really want to leverage the expertise, the experiences, the knowledge of all of our citizens, all of our members of a team, it's so important to do so. Yeah, so that's why it's just really, I think it's not just an affront to people of color. It is an affront to the research. It's an affront to best practices. It's an affront to what the United States really stands for. Like the Statue of Liberty saying, send your people, um, and tapping into the value of diversity. So I'm sure we'll get into more of that as we
Yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And for people to feel valued is essential. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Um, what emotions are you hearing most often right now from people of color in your circles?
So I think there's a lot of anger,
Yeah, of course.
and I think anger is a secondary emotion. Maybe hurt is a primary one, and anger comes after that. So people are just
Hmm.
absolutely hurt,
Hmm.
and uh, I think what disturbs me so much is not just like a different political ideology or someone that just thinks differently than me. I value that, right? That we can always compromise, we can find, what works in the middle, and we can get the best ideas from multiple sides and still come up with a great solution. But it's the hypocrisy, right? It's the firing of black generals and women and preventing the promotions of black and brown generals and female generals, and then putting Pete Hegseth in charge, someone who has such little experience. He wasn't even a full-time, news person or Fox News celebrity. He was just on the weekends. And to put him in charge of all military, that is hypocrisy. To say that DEI is hiring people based on their race when you know you have to be qualified as well, and then hire an entire cabinet that is underqualified, maybe the least qualified presidential cabinet in the history of the United States. One qualification you need is loyalty to the president. And so it's that kind of hypocrisy. I have my whole family is military except for me, my
Oh,
father, four older brothers,
oh,
um, and they were very successful in the military. Like we've had a general, we've had captains, we've just really successful military careers. And I know firsthand, or at least secondhand through my family, that if you make it up at the ladder in the military, that you've earned it. They don't make exceptions and say, oh, well, he's black. Let's put him in charge of 2,000 troops going to war. They don't do that. So if you make it that far, you've earned it. Probably you've earned it doubly, right?
hmm.
Because the military still has it's still a racist institution. It still has racism embedded. And so for them to dismiss, people of color and women, and say that they were just DEI hires, and then put in the cabinet that they have in charge of everything, in charge of our country, that it's the hypocrisy that is the worst. So that's
And the cruelty,
angering.
and the
Yeah,
cruelty, and the yeah.
yes, absolutely. The way they did it, the way they treat people, it's the absolute opposite of how I think our nation should be. So
Yeah, and we've come to admire the military so much. I don't know what's going to happen now that the whole ethos is being torn apart. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that I think when all is said and done, many of our leaders may be brought on, war crimes, but internationally. And I think that we're doing our, not only, people of color and women harm, we're doing our country harm. I hope that we can weather
Absolutely.
this storm. We are in trouble by having people with no expertise, no experience running things. Right? The first executive
I think
orders were
most importantly, no care.
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's just a entirely different way. Like, I don't know, the way that we treat prisoners of war and don't target civilians, women and children, things like that, and to have that kind of thing happening when for I don't know, like 100 years, there's been laws around how you engage in war, and to have that dismissed and not cared about. That's yeah, you're absolutely right.
So, with the whole DEI rollbacks and everything, people are scared even to use the word inclusion. It's been taken out of most universities' language. It's not allowed if they want to get federal funding. What feels most at stake at this moment?
So I think there's multiple facets. Maybe on the broadest, I think that it's really the dumbing down of America.
Mm.
Attacking the institutions of higher learning because they feel like they're too woke or too liberal. But they do all the research. They do, you know, research, medical research, sociological research, all the things that are really important, advancing us as a society. Um,
That's what made America first.
That's why everyone around the world wanted to come to school in the United States, especially for our universities and graduate school. And that's why for decades and decades and decades, the federal government helped to fund these innovative research that was being done, getting them to learn how people operate, what we do, about diseases, about the body, just all of the range of research that was absolutely cut. So I saw an interview with a couple of people from Doge who were in charge of reviewing our research projects and then cutting them if they didn't match what they felt the current administration's values and executive order was about. And they asked them like, why would you cut these things? Like because they didn't match the executive order. Well, are you familiar with this kind of research? Do you know what these terms mean? No, they just mentioned diversity, so we have to cut them. It's like, and they were like 22 years old. There were kids that were looking at, you know, grants and projects that had been funded for years and years and years, and just cutting them under Doge because they felt they matched what the current administration was looking for or wanted to cut.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so again, all this highly expertise, all the research, the hours and years and careers and decades dedicated to research, unfunded because a 22-year-old was told if it says diversity or women or anything like that, we're no longer funding it. And of course, the lack of compassion when it came to IUSA aid, not IU, USAID, that's
Hmm.
it, USAID,
Hmm.
um, or USID, billions of dollars around the world for medicine, for food, helping those who are most needed or most in need. But the goodwill that put out there on behalf of the U.S. government that made people want to work with the U.S. or come to the U.S. or
And
give
admire
back
the
to the
US.
U.S.
Yeah.
right, right. To have all of that cut where potentially millions of people are dying now from lack of medicine, from
Yeah.
lack of food, and then warehouses of food that are just going to waste and being destroyed because they're not, people aren't able to deliver them and eat them and eat the food. So that's the lack of compassion. And so I think that the impact is we're less compassionate, we're less caring, more selfish, more egocentric, ego driven, not realizing that with power, with great power comes great responsibility. I hate to have to quote Marvel or Spider-Man or his uncle, but right, with great power comes great responsibility, and we are fortunate to live in a country that could help a lot of people. And now we seem to be more interested in what can they do for us as opposed to what can we do for other people. Another quote that comes to mind is Dr. King would say that a country is only as wealthy as its poorest citizen. So when we still have millions of people going hungry in the United States, millions of people who can't get health care, millions of people who are homeless, there's a lot of work that we need to do
Hmm.
internally
Hmm.
in our own country. And so we're not doing anything there. We're cutting Medicaid, we're cutting Medicare, we're cutting SNAP and food services for children, cutting thousands and thousands of tens of thousands of government jobs, firing people left and right to save money because we wanted to save money, and now spending 10 times that in a week at war. And now we've been at war for 3 weeks, and the amount of money that we're spending, it absolutely makes no sense. So
Absolutely.
the dumbing down of America, we're not making logical decisions, not using research-based or data-based decisions, but going off the whim of someone who is in severe mental decline, in my opinion.
Yeah. That's
Is that honest?
pretty accurate on very sadly, very tragic,
Yeah,
very, very tragically. Yeah. Let's hope this too shall pass somehow. I mean, the damage has been done,
right.
but we'll see. Hopefully the bleeding. We'll see, right? So, for those who may not fully understand what's happening, how would you describe the current rollback of DEI efforts? That's a
Yeah. So
huge question, so just whatever comes to mind.
yeah, and so I think that um, my immediate answer, I think it's the most honest thing that I can say, and it also might be difficult for some people to hear, but I honestly believe it is just white supremacy. To not only just to fire all DEI, people to disregard um, offices and things like that, but to want to erase the history and contributions of people of color from the museums, from our history books. They're, removing people that were buried in Arlington Cemetery because they're people of color. They want to disband and erase all mention of any achievement or any history of people of color in our country. And to me, that is white supremacist.
Yeah.
That's like only white people um, have contributed to to the greatness of our nation. And so I'm not an expert in history, I'm not a historian, but I certainly know a lot. And I know that a lot of people from different ethnicities, different races have contributed to the greatness of the country, including
It wouldn't be,
couple
yeah.
hundred years of free labor doesn't, also helped us to become a wealthy nation. And so, um, yeah, I value the contributions of everyone, and it's not pie, right? Like if we, it's not like there's only a limited amount of attributions we can give. And oh, I'm sorry, it's all full. We can't acknowledge anyone else. No, we acknowledge as many people as contributed, right? And people contributed in different ways. And then,
Or
there's
we're
just
forced to contribute in different ways. Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. And those stories of overcoming bondage and chattel slavery and educating yourself and getting jobs and building something and inventing and all of the um, adversity that was overcome to achieve in our country, that that's not only a testament to individuals and ethnic groups, but it's a testament to our country and it's our history.
And to the
All these,
human resilience. Yeah.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
such a shy, such an, if we could, to admire that, which is what many people were starting to do. But yeah,
Right. We're finally, we still had a long way to go, but wow, we had come so far in honoring those legacies. And someone who's half white, half black, but grew up in England and then Idaho. And I don't know if you've been to Idaho or
a few
the
times. Yeah.
demographics. Oh, you have. You've been in
Yeah, I did
Pocatello.
two
That's right.
diversity workshops. Yeah.
That's right. We talked about that. But the black population in Idaho when I was there was 0.29%. And that was from 1977 to 1999. So it was 0.29%. At Boise State, as an undergrad, we had maybe 115 black students out of 15,000. And then at Idaho State University in Pocatello, Idaho, where you were, when I first got there, we had 64 black students. And by the time I left, we had about 115 black students out of 12,500. So less than 1%, less than a half of a percent of a black population in the state of Idaho. So I haven't been in enriching, diverse communities growing up, but I had a couple of teachers and some mentors that really instilled, and great parents too, that just really instilled in me that I can achieve, that I come from important people, that even though I'm, diverse and a lot of people don't look like me back in the day, I was still important and I could still do some great things. So I relied on, I just really looked to the resilience of African Americans and all of my ethnicities that gave me a lot of courage, a lot of confidence, and helped me go forward. And I know I didn't learn anything. I didn't have a single assignment to read something of a Black author until I had one teacher in 11th grade and then in college. And in 11th grade was something by Martin Luther King, I think the letter from a Birmingham jail. And then in college, I took a Black literature
Wow.
class.
Wow. And then things have come so far since then, and now they're all being
Yes,
rolled
yeah.
back.
Right. So Black
Yeah.
studies and having requirements for everybody to have to choose some diverse background where previously the classics were just white men, not even women. And so to have more of a diverse understanding of our world, of our society, of our country, and people have to learn different
Of all the
languages.
brilliant contributors from all
There you
different
go.
races and cultures and genders. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you what do you think are the emotional and psychological impacts of these rollbacks right now on people of color?
So I think it affects different people of different age groups a little differently. So someone
Mm-hmm.
of my age, that's kind of been in the field, fighting the fight for a very long time, to see so much undone so quickly is absolutely devastating. It's just devastating. I could just cry. I'm not going to today.
You can.
I certainly have.
I'm sure.
But I
Yes.
certainly have. I've just been absolutely exasperated that I just can't believe all of this happened. And why didn't we have more protection of, within our government, and learning more that, well, some of the things that we took as laws were just suggestions, right? They relied on someone who was logical and fair, and believed in the rule of law and was not so self-centered that they would dismantle a framework of a country so easily, and again, not care about it. But we'll see long-term repercussions. Like we're in trouble. A lot of things have been dismantled, and not just for people of color, but it's going to affect the whole nation. So people are hurt. They're in pain. I know so many people lost their jobs. Divisions. I was recruited to Indiana University by the vice president for um, multicultural student affairs, and there's several other departments under that. And then that was dismantled last spring. And that so I was recruited there like 25 years ago. That's the reason I'm in Indiana. That's the reason I went to Indiana University. And then to have that dismantled, where I valued so much of all the work they were doing, like recruiting underprivileged students to come to IU, programs that gave scholarships to people of color and to women, and Studies had shown that if someone was underprepared for college, by their end of their sophomore year, they were on par with their peers. So sometimes you have to do a little extra, you
Yeah.
know, tutoring or whatever. You have to support them, but ultimately they'll catch up and they'll graduate. Then they'll become more productive members of society. They'll pay more taxes because they make more money, and
Of course.
so all of those things.
Of
It's
course.
we look at that as all of a positive thing, and to have someone say no. No more, we're not helping Black people anymore. If it has Black or diversity or women or anything like that or LGBTQ, all of that is gone from now on. Like that's just a huge number of our population. And I think it's because of white supremacy.
Mhm.
They feel like, you know, probably historically, if someone applied for a job and there was a white manager, they could just throw a resume away and not even consider them. Then affirmative action laws came out in the late 60s and in the 70s, which didn't require that you hired a person of color. It required that you look at their resume and you consider them for a position. There was never any mandates. That's what people think. Affirmative action, it was mandated. Our woke system, you have to hire people of color. No, you have to hire the best people for the job, but sometimes that's suggestive, right? Um, and so it's subjective. And so, if people are close, say we have an organization with 100 people, and 80 of them are white men, and 15 of them are white women, and then we have five random people of color, and then someone of color is in the top two or three. Maybe we should hire that person because they bring more diversity to an organization. And so, well, no, I've literally been in meetings, so I've experienced this personally, where if it's a person of color, they're like, they have so much, but they're missing this one key point. They just don't have this on their resume. And on the flip side, maybe a white person that is less qualified, it says, well, they can learn, like they have everything else that's important, but they can learn that one piece, right? So we make exceptions because it's subjective, like whoever the hiring manager is. And so there was never any laws that said you had to hire a person of color. I think that previously, if there was a government contract, you had to have a certain number of diverse employees, and that's because we were doing people of color
But it was
pay
still
taxes.
merit. It was still
Right.
who
It's still
qualified.
based on
Yeah.
merit.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. They still wouldn't it would do no one any good to hire someone who wasn't qualified to do a job.
Of course.
Ultimately they wouldn't do a job. It would hurt the organization. It would hurt that person. And then it would hurt anybody else that came after that person. Right. And so, yeah, it's just, they don't want the competition. I think that women are rising. They're breaking through the glass ceiling now. They're becoming more leaders. They're becoming heads of corporations. More people of color have been moving up, and there's white men who are sometimes mediocre that feel like it's not fair anymore. Another one of my favorite quotes that came out a few years ago, and I can't attribute it to, I don't know where it came from. I just heard it and I loved it. And it's, if you've always been privileged, then equality feels like oppression.
Hmm.
If you've always been privileged, equality feels like oppression. So if you never had to compete with women or people of color before, and all of a sudden you do, it's like it's not fair. They're not giving me a chance. No, you just have to compete with everybody else. But if you're always given things, and I also think that now this is another really tough tough statement, but if you are a white male in this society and you're not doing well, then I mean, that says something about you, right? If the whole system is set up for you to succeed and you're not succeeding, then they take it really personally and they blame other people. They look for scapegoats, right? And so I would hear that a lot, even from members of wide audiences, or when I do a lot of what I call unity summits, where we get people talking about these issues, and of all different, ethnic backgrounds, political ideologies, just to have civil dialogue on difficult topics. And people say it's just not fair. It used to be this way, and now it's different. I'm like, yeah, but it used to be oppressive, and now it's less oppressive. But yeah, hopefully I'm making making sense. I'm
Yeah,
kind of
no,
going
absolutely,
around. Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. I
yeah,
mean, there's so many facets and individual ways people are all you know, coming to this, and
Yeah.
um, how do you think it's affecting young people who didn't have weren't in the fight and are just coming up now and entering the workforce and at higher education and seeing this all happening?
I think that's a great question. I have seen, even though I don't work at a university currently, I'm still like a volunteer advisor for a Black male student group at a university where I work. And over the years, like our students would be just so confident in their applying for internships and
Mm.
grad school, and there's just a lot of confidence, like nothing's going to stop them. And I think even in the last year, there's just a little diminishment. There's a little spark that's a little diminished spark in them. And so they're still applying, but you don't see the confidence and as much. And there's still some students that are confident, but it used to be a lot of students, like most of the students are confident now. Um, like their aspirations are being derailed. There's more depression, yeah, things like that.
So it used to be they felt like things were opening and they'd had a lot more possibility, and now they're
Yes,
seeing that they're seeing the doors closing, and
yeah.
yeah.
And it used to be one or two racial incidents for them, on campus. Now there's so many, like people are really emboldened and comfortable in saying whatever they
Oh, I
want to
didn't know
say.
this. Can you speak on that? I'm
Yeah,
not.
in the classroom. So just uh, one one incident that I'm aware of. A young woman was in a freshman class, like a freshman orientation class, and a student, they were talking about affirmative action, diversity issues, and a student said, if it wasn't for affirmative action scholarships, you wouldn't even be here. You don't belong here. You're not smart enough to be at this university. And so the young woman started to defend herself, said, first of all, I am on an academic scholarship, not on a affirmative action program. I have every right to be here. And it just at that point, the teacher butts in and say, okay, stop, calm down, everybody. Let's move on. We're not going to have this comment. So I have this argument here. So they let the white male student say whatever he wanted to say. But when the Black female started to defend herself, then the teacher shut down the conversation. I don't think she meant to silence the Black woman. She was trying to get control to make sure it didn't get out of hand. But in doing that, she emboldened the white student and suppressed the Black student from defending herself.
Mhm.
And that's a lack of training, a lack of
Yeah, yeah.
insight into how to manage diversity in the
Well, people
classroom.
are not being taught how to manage. And people of any
Absolutely.
color are not being able to, it's all been such an onslaught. It's all come on so fast.
Hmm.
Nobody really in these positions knows how to, unless you have enormous emotional intelligence or whatever, you
Correct.
know,
And I
how to
think that,
handle.
yeah, I think, managing diversity in the classroom, like setting the decorum the first day of class. This
Yeah,
is how we will engage in disagreement in class. We will have
yeah.
debate. We will treat each other with dignity and respect. You will honor each other. You'll
I
learn
think that
from each
needs
other.
to become a built-in. I think that would be brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, yeah, I agree with you, agreed with me. So, yeah, I think we have to set, and that's one thing that universities have done really well is like, no, we're going to honor each other. We're going to treat each other with dignity and respect, whether we agree with them, whether we understand someone. In my last role at Notre Dame, I worked in human resources. Normally, I worked in student affairs or some hybrid of academic and student affairs, but I was in HR for the first time in this role, and I was there 9.5 years. Um, and if someone would complain, well, there's a gay employee that works in our office and they're making everybody else uncomfortable. I'm like, look, you don't have to agree with them. You don't even have to understand them, but you have to treat everyone that works here with dignity and respect. We hire the best people at Notre Dame, whoever they are. We want them to do their best work. We spend money to get them. We hire them. We want them to do their best work while they're there. And in order for them to do their best work, they have to feel valued. They have to feel welcome. They have to feel like they belong. And so you don't may not understand someone who might be gay or trans, but you will treat everyone with dignity and respect when you're at work. I can't control what they do at home. I would hope that they would, still be more humanistic and compassionate at home, but at work, you will treat people with dignity and respect. And most people did. I think they got employee resource groups that represented different ethnic groups, women, and an LGBTQ plus employee resource group that's still active. I've been gone for almost 2 years, but they're still viable and active. All of these employee resource groups. So that was a part of it. We're really making waves and embedding that dignity and respect. And I think that that's not just a diversity thing, but it was a Notre Dame thing. It's a Catholic value that Catholics believe we're all made in the image of God. So how can you mistreat someone who's made in the image of God? So just that kind of
Mm.
ideology and that idea. Um, and I think that that's eroding uh, in public spaces, in schools, in universities, in politics, everywhere. We don't have to treat people with dignity and respect. Instead of thinking that, oh, Democrats have a different ideology, they value different aspects of our society, they value putting money in different places. Instead, we demonize the other side. They're the enemy of the state because they don't agree with me. And that was basically a recent comment by our president. They said, like, once Iran is taken care of, the biggest enemy of the U.S. will be our liberal Democrats. Um,
See, that's
and
that's what's so scary is that cruelty is being normalized
yes,
down
he's talked
down the
about
line.
women. He's talked about people with disabilities. Yeah, that cruelty is normalized and exacerbated, and just that basic human decorum. Like, again, another example is how ICE treats people. Like, I don't like criminals. I have no undocumented people in my family, but I also don't consider undocumented criminals. They're people who are looking for a better life. I, was working at a university at a time when the DACA came out, where students, the DREAM Act came out, and so students could pursue their education while they're also trying to get citizenship. Um, I believe in that. Like,
So beautiful. It was, yeah, yeah,
we are a nation of immigrants. We
of
are a
course.
nation of immigrants and then forced slave chattel, right? So all of that. And so when ICE wants to get rid of the criminals that, the murderers and the all of that, fine, do that. But what they're doing is attacking older people, women, children, tearing families apart, ripping people out of schools. They're doing all of these things, and that's not what people signed up for, and that's not what was said would happen. They were going to get the worst of the worst, the criminals, and then they, create Alligator Alley or Alligator Alcatraz, and then people went missing. We don't know where. There's people missing still from that facility, and they have to shut the facility down because it was so inhumane. So putting people in big warehouses without adequate toilets, without adequate food or health care, people are dying in ICE custody, all of those, just the way they're treating people, and then U.S. citizens being shot and killed in the streets because they disagreed with how their neighbors were being treated. So we have a right to freedom of speech, the right to assembly, um, you know, so those are all things that first continue to weigh on our psyche. Anyone that's compassionate and cares about other humans or other beings or other people, that weighs on you. So not only is, like,
Of
DEI
course.
is being attacked, but then we see people being murdered in the streets, and we care about Americans, we care about America, and this is not America. And so I think that all of that is compounding and making it even harder for I think women and people of color, and then immigrants who are going through the process, and they would have a hearing with a judge coming up, and so they attend it, and then they're arrested and deported, but they were going through the process, right? And then we all know, they're like, well, why don't you just do it the legal way? Well, we know that there's preferential treatment depending on what country you come from. So Europeans have an easier opportunity to become citizens than people from Africa or South America or Asia. And yeah, and of course, our Donald Trump said we don't want people from shithole countries. We want people from, Sweden and Denmark, and Sweden and Denmark saying no, thank you. We're the we're the happiest
Happiest.
countries in the world. Why would we come there? We have free healthcare, free education.
Treated with respect. Because right now he's putting just in different ways and on different, very different levels, and
Hmm.
everybody's being put in this fear bubble, right?
Yes,
For all different
absolutely.
reasons.